Hello and welcome back to another episode. It has been a couple of weeks, has it not, since I last recorded a brand spanking new video for this YouTube channel, and the reason for that is that a few weeks ago I twinged my back, or rather I aggravated an old injury in my lower back that, while fairly common, it's not uncommon for people to have lower back problems, pulled muscles, disc issues, this kind of thing. In my case, the root of my problem, the particular cause of this problem, is fairly specific, and I figured it was worthwhile sharing that story with you today. You see, it all stems from my time working at the Jorvik Viking Centre. It was a great job. I was part-time Viking, part-time archaeologist, part-time entertainer, part-time educator, part-time workshop writer, in fact. And it really taught me a lot about talking to the public about archaeology and meeting them where they're specifically at. Some people come in with loads of knowledge, and you can even refer them to specific journal articles and papers to go away and learn more. Other people are complete novices or are just looking to have some fun, and you can just have fun with the basics and just introduce them to a sense of what they've come to experience. And in particular at Jorvik, this involved going on a ride. There was a reconstruction of Jorvik Coppergate, or a 1,000-year-old Coppergate, and it was during the day a smelly but very educational experience, very sort of historically accurate, and people would get off the ride and they'd go, "Ooh, that was very interesting," and then they'd learn a bit more as they proceeded. But on Halloween, around about that time of year, we would dress up the whole set with cobwebs and blood and spooky lighting and all this sort of stuff, and all the staff would get dressed up as monsters, and we'd all be sort of zombies and witches and ghouls, and folks would come through for this ticketed event in and around Halloween. And so that day we were set to have a normal day where it would be a standard museum experience, and then sort of a 2 or 3 hour turnaround where we would dress the set and also get dressed in our costumes, or sort of modify our costumes, because obviously we wore costumes every day at Jorvik. And then it would be welcoming in the public in their ticketed batches to sort of gently scare them. And I was really excited. Arguably, I was a bit too excited, because that morning I was on the door. I was set to be on the door anyway, and that meant that you had to be sort of normally fully sort of armoured up. And so I was getting changed, ready for the day, in a fairly small changing room. The Jorvik changing room is about maybe 2 meters square. It's smaller than my office, and it has lots of lockers in it, so it's even smaller when you're in there. And I went to put on my chain shirt, and a chain shirt at the best of times is quite a heavy thing to carry. It's also quite a heavy thing to wear, although once it's on your shoulders the weight spreads out quite nicely, and you don't notice it after a while. When you take it off, you feel as though you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 foot tall, because you just feel as though you're floating. But it's not to be taken lightly, no pun intended. And I had it on the floor in front of me. I bent down to pick it up a bit too quickly, it should be said. I sort of went, right, chain shirt, whoop, and then I didn't get back up again. I was essentially one of the McDonald's archers in human form. And I remember just sort of knocking on the bottom of the door, because obviously people were waiting to get in to get changed themselves. And they're like, "Are you done yet, Mark?" And I'm like, do, help me. I unlocked the door. Thankfully, I had my trousers on and stuff. I was essentially dressed, because you put the chain shirt over your tunic, etc. And they were like, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm my back." So they took me into the staff room, gave me some painkillers, and then it dawned on us all that I couldn't go home, because it was an all hands on deck kind of day, and other people had taken leave as well, because some people just don't like to be involved in the big events. Frankly, I don't think I would normally, but Halloween was a special case. So I couldn't go home. So I worked my whole day. My was it 9 till 5 or whatever. with a horribly painful back. They put me on a couple of key positions so I wouldn't have to move too much. So I was welcoming people onto the ride. On we go! Or I was, I think at one point I was at they had a station where you'd sort of hammer a coin, book, and people would have this sort of this replica of a coin found at your rig, but also on the flip side there was a design that was sort of a memento of your visit to the museum. So maybe I was on that position or a couple of other places where I wouldn't have to pick things up or move. And so come 5 o'clock, my back is not improving. I can barely stand up straight. And I had been set to be some sort of berserker, I think. Me and I think a guy called Nathan that evening were meant to be sort of wearing sort of wolf skin and have, like, you know, black makeup in our eyes and be all sort of, you know, and chasing people down corridors. But that wasn't going to happen. That was not going to happen in my case. Not that night. So instead, we alighted upon the genius idea of painting my face green and turning me into a sort of a zombified Viking / maybe an ogre, some sort of Igor type, you know, from the classic Frankenstein movie.
Nobody can mend Igor's neck. It's all right.
So that was me, really, and they put me on the same positions more or less that I had been on during the day. So I was welcoming people onto the ride, and I was also like, "On we come on, onto the," and people were like, "This is amazing acting, wonderful. I really believe that you're a gnarled, pained, wretched human being." And I was like, "I'm not acting. I'm in a lot of pain." And they'd be like, "Brilliant!" And they'd be clapping, and off they'd go to get scared on the ride. No one really knew just how much pain I was in. And there is a photo somewhere, I can't find it for some reason, of me in my green makeup, sort of pointing at the camera. But the best I can do for this video is a full group picture. At the end of the evening, we took a picture of everyone who had been taking part, and I'm at the back holding onto a spear for dear life, because I was in an awful lot of pain. And finally the evening ended. I got to go home. They gave me a couple of days off. They switched the rotor around, and my back did improve, thankfully. And it stayed fairly stable for a couple of years until we were moving house. My lovely wife and I, we were moving from a flat actually into a house. So into the house that we moved into before we moved into this house. And I went to pick up a TV. It was a flat screen television that was just behind a sort of a tall, thin box. And I thought, oh, I can pick this up, it's not too heavy. Here we go. And went down to pick it up. And because I was leaning over something to pick up this thing, I just, pop, my back went again. And all of the force, all of the weight of that TV focused right down on my lower back, and I wasn't using my legs or anything. It was very foolish, and I was completely hobbled again for a few days. It was really inconvenient as well, because we had to go back and clean the previous place that we were moving out of. We'd moved all our stuff, and then we had a couple of days turnaround to get back in there and just, you know, give it a good hoover and a wash down, this kind of thing. And so there I was, essentially dragging myself along the floor, cleaning skirting boards. At one point, I think I was cleaning the oven. And then also, I remember there was a really, really dramatic storm as well on that day. Probably the biggest storm I've ever seen in person. Like, the skies went black and everything. So with all that back pain and everything going, sort of closing in on you in terms of the dark skies, it was a dramatic time. And then every now and then my back would just slightly be twinged, but I've been improving it over the years, especially for the past 3 or 4 years. I've been very specifically doing movements that I would have avoided because of my back. I've been trying to sort of build up that strength, build up that mobility, things like, and this is what happens when you don't look after your back, or when you've injured yourself and you don't get proper physiotherapy with your back is you just avoid specific movements. So for example, I would only roll one way, maybe in bed or getting up out of bed. I would sometimes, if it was at its worst, I would sort of slide out of bed instead of actually moving through the motion and maintaining that mobility. So I became more disciplined in the past few years, and absolutely have built up some strength in my back, and also in the past couple of years, the past 18 months or so, we have been doing weights even. We share a gym space with our good friend Ruth in her garage. And I thought, yeah, great, I'm building up proper strength in my back, in my arms, in my chest. Wonderful. This isn't really going to bother me, hopefully, ever again. Except obviously it did. It specifically bothered me when I was taking this photograph. I was positioning the camera on its little tripod on a metal fence that sort of surrounds a pond in a park in North Shields, and I really liked the reflection in the water. I thought it was photo worthy, and as I sort of stooped to place the camera, I felt a little boop in my back. You see, the fence was just below waist height. It was maybe a fraction, a centimetre even below waist height, not much. But instead of, I don't know, bending my knee a little bit, I seemingly must have stooped by extending my back. I sort of maybe went up to go down, perhaps. It's hard to know what precisely that tiny little movement was, but it was enough just to twinge that old injury. And I thought, I'll be fine, I can walk this off. And I did. We went for a good walk after that. But I knew something was wrong, and that night I tried to get to sleep. I couldn't find a position where I was comfortable in bed. I came down and tried to sleep in the living room on a chair. I couldn't, even sitting upright, I couldn't get a position. It was horrible. And that's how the past couple of weeks have proceeded, with me sort of making incremental improvements in my ability to sit, or frankly to walk, to do almost anything, in fact. So editing, filming, talking to camera for long periods of time just was a no-go, really. And it's interesting, when you have an injury in one part of your back, other parts of your back and your body sort of try to accommodate it. So now, actually, what's hurting me now is my left hip and my right knee, because presumably I've been sort of walking in a particular way for a couple of weeks that I'm, you're not meant to walk, but necessarily. So now I've got sort of what almost feels like that sort of post-workout tightness and DOMS, I think it's called, in those parts of my body. So maybe in 3 days' time I'll be back to normal fully, but my right leg is so stiff now, all because I struggled to pick up a chain shirt 10 years ago. It's crackers. Anyway, let this be a lesson to you. Look after your back. Whenever grown-ups in my life when I was a kid said, look after your back and look after your ears, son, I was like, yeah, whatever. But it's true. Don't listen to music too loud in your ears, because you'll lose some hearing. I've lost a little bit of hearing. And look after your back, because once it pops, to coin a phrase, it won't stop. But I do have an appointment now set up with a physiotherapist in the local hospital. So when that becomes available at some point in hopefully not too distant future, I'll be getting this injury properly investigated, trying to reduce its severity, reduce its regularity, because it's been a good couple of years since this has happened to me. So I was doing quite well, but also I haven't had a 2-week turnaround on my back for quite a while. So this was a bad one, even though it was a tiny little movement. It was a bad one. So yeah, that's the moral of the story. Look after your back. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Until next time, guys, do take care. Bye bye.